Okay, so the idea of what you were supposed to learn from the football field graph was to understand, to kind of have a first-person knowledge of how motion looks on a graph. Motion looks different from an average speed graph, but you can tell a speed by looking at the slope or how steep the angle is on a line. The additional thing that motion graphs give is it can also show you if there's no motion and if the motion turns a different direction and goes back to where you started. So it gives a little bit more information when you're doing a motion graph. So let's look at what we did on the football field and what that looks like on this graph. So here you were skipping, right? That was our first activity. We skipped to the 15-yard line. So we have a line there where we skipped. Then we moved from the 15-yard line to the 25-yard line by rolling. So we rolled to the 25-yard line. You can see here that this angle is not as steep as this angle. So this one's going almost straight up and down, okay? Not quite as straight up and down as this one, so that's our fastest one. But it definitely is going more straight up and down than this line. So this is a faster speed, and you can see 3 yards per second than rolling, which was only 0.8 yards per second. So that's the first thing that you should be able to see from a line graph or a motion graph. Steeper lines, just like in speed graphs, represent a faster speed. So here we can see this is our fastest speed, and this is also a fast speed. Gradual lines represent a slower speed, and flat lines represent zero speed. So when I started doing my jumping jacks, I started at about 17 seconds, and then I did jumping jacks for about 20 seconds. And so here, I didn't move from the 25-yard line. Time passed. It took me some time to get those jumping jacks done, but I was on the 25-yard line the whole time. So here you can see that there's no change in my motion on the football field. So we have that flat line that shows I didn't achieve any distance at all. I didn't move closer to the 50-yard line, and I didn't move back towards the 0-yard line. This line is telling me that I turned around and went backwards, right? So I turned around and went back to where I started. So my distance from the end zone went back to 0. That doesn't mean that I went back in time. I can't go back this way. I go this way. So we still had it took me time in the forward motion to get back to where I started. You can see that this is also a gradual line. It kind of looks like this one. So it doesn't matter what direction those gradual lines are sloping. It's still a gradual slope. It's not steep. So you can tell that I went back when I hopped on my foot. On my 1 foot backwards was a slower progress than this really steep incline of running, okay? And you can also see that the slope here is pretty close to my slope here, so I was hopping backwards at about the same speed probably as I was doing my PKs when I went backwards after I ran. This is my running, and then this is PKing back to the beginning. So the things that you're supposed to be able to recognize when you're looking at a motion graph. Again, steep slopes like blue and yellow represent fast speeds. Gradual slopes like pink, cyan, and orange represent gradual speeds. And a flat line represents no speed at all, no change in motion. Lines that are going from the bottom towards the right-hand side of the graph are going from bottom up, are representing a moving away from the start point. When a line starts up high and goes back down toward the 0 line on the y-axis, that means that the direction is going back towards the starting point. I hope that's helpful. You're going to need that information to help you complete your graph. Your graph won't look exactly like mine, but it should look very close. You should have a general shape that looks like mine. Don't forget to put your labels that tell you what action you were doing at that spot and what your average speed was. I hope this is helpful, and this will also help you with your quiz and completing your practice page.